Welcome back to another session of the Sisters in Therapy podcast. I'm Dr. Mercedes.
I'm Dr. B.
I'm Dr. TK.
So today we are talking about healing versus healed, and we always start with some definitions. So the definition of healed: to become sound or healthy again is an intensely personal or subjective experience. It sounds simple.
It does.
To become sound or healthy again, which means, I guess they're saying you're clearly unhealthy if you need to start the process of healing. That's what I take from their definition.
Girl. Okay. So I actually like the way you started that way because before we were started recording, I had asked Takesha, like, how can I sort of bring it up in a way that like doesn't solidify that definition being so definitive, right?
Okay.
So how do I want to do it? So then what's one of like the first things that comes to mind for you when you hear people on social media talking about healed or healing?
Trauma.
Oof. Okay, in what way?
People, trauma and healing tend to be associated together.
I get what you mean. Okay.
When I see healed, all I see is the ED on the end, like healed.
Oh, yeah,
it's done.
of course, that too.
I don't know if that's.
But I'm saying when I'm thinking about something that they're healing from, but yes, the ED definitely means it's definitive. There's a final destination is what I think about when I hear people talk about healing on social media.
Okay. Isn't there one though? Is there a final destination for a healing process?
No, but are we finna go there right now? There is no final destination, though.
Okay.
No, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
I guess, like, why do we think that it's so important that people know it's not a final destination? Like, what are the dangers in thinking or concerns in thinking that there is a final destination to our healing?
Because I think when people experience a trigger that's associated with what they're trying to heal from, it implies to them, or at least it translates to them, that they've not made any progress in their healing journey, right? So like there's a misconception that it's complete when it's not. Now, if we talk about physical health, yes.
Okay.
Like if you scrape your arm, yes, there is a healing process, and then the wound means it's healed, right?
Right. I'm glad you said that because we need to be clear that we're talking about healing in the aspect of the psychological realm.
Yes,
for sure. Emotional healing and things like that.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's an ongoing process, and I think that's one of the main things that I also see when people say I'm healed. And I mean, I'm happy for people when they say that, right? But I try to encourage specifically my clients that your healing is like a river, right? It ebbs and flows, and you're going to be triggered sometimes, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, it was a client. My client is the one who walked into a session one day and was just like, we need to talk about this shit. You know what I'm saying? So we need to take the ED off of this.
Yes.
And I said, tell me more. She said, I'm not done with this.
No. It's ongoing.
Thinking about her now, but that's what she said.
No, she's not wrong. It's so ongoing, and especially when we talk about like healing from like past relationships, how you occupy relationships end up being different if you are intentional about what it is that you need to reflect on, process, release, all of that, right? So like that in itself implies or solidifies in a way that it is an ongoing process.
I think it's important that we have to know, because if not, I feel like sometimes when people think about being healed, they think I'm never going to experience this uncomfortable emotion anymore.
There it is.
And so as soon as, like you said, Britt, triggered or a real life circumstance that it's 100% natural and legitimate of loss of a job or any type of grief, you're going to feel the sadness and hurt again. And people think, oh, wow, this means I'm not healed. No.
Right.
Because you're still a human.
Yeah.
Right.
You still gonna have these feelings.
Yes.
So healing would be like, it's the process of alleviating that pain.
Yes.
Or attempting to alleviate the pain, and that pain could be associated with that experience that you're trying to heal from. You may not be directly involved with that relationship or that person or that experience, but you will have those emotional wounds tied to it, and therefore healing is ongoing, because how wounds work is sometimes they get Band-Aids, and then sometimes you can puncture them.
Yeah.
And that's the trigger.
Right.
But because we're human and because life always lives, I think just those two things alone mean that we will constantly be healing. I think it's a part of the human experience.
I agree. And what I try to encourage for my clients is like, you're in this therapeutic process to learn healthier ways to respond or manage
Mm-hmm.
your
Okay.
triggers, and to normalize, like you said, it's okay to feel, you're a human.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How can we do things a little bit differently, knowing what you know and knowing that this is something that you've decided to release, this is something that you're trying to heal from,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
you know? So that kind of segues into how do we, kind of like the example that you brought up with your
Mhm.
client, like how do you help your clients understand that first,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a door closed type
Okay.
of situation.
Okay.
How do you encourage them in that process or educate them in that process?
Well, can we take it back to
Okay.
how do we talk about healing in the realm of mental health? Like, how
Okay,
do
yes.
people? Because sometimes people come to therapy and don't realize that they are starting a healing journey or that they have something to heal from.
Yes.
So, I mean, how would we explain healing in the realm of mental health?
I think I would start off with one, it looking different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is person centered.
Oh, absolutely. It has to be, because my healing and what's working for me
Mhm.
might not be the same thing for
Ooh, you
you.
just said something there. You know why? Because when people do find themselves getting better over something that caused them some source of distress, they tend to think that their method works for everybody.
Yes.
Oof.
Oh my
And that is
gosh.
that is dangerous.
Yes, and
Because you're
that's
not the
dangerous.
professional. You are a
Right.
peer support. And by peer support, that means you have commonalities with the person that you think you're trying to treat.
Correct. Yes.
Mhm.
And I like that. I was trying to find a way to maneuver back into that. But yes, and I think that's one of the main things that I see on social media when people, it's fine that people are excited
Yes.
about their healing process, right? Like that's not to
course.
shit on nobody. However, it really is not a one size fits all
Not at all.
experience. It is
Not at all.
it is intensely personal and super subjective.
Mhm.
Because how you learn about what you've experienced would be different from the next person.
Mhm.
People process things
Okay.
differently.
And I think that's a part of something that we've talked about before, and just having being ethical with our platform, being ethical with your voice, and how, if you're trying to share your journey, if you're trying to talk about your healing, encourage other people, you got to do that in an ethical way and know that speaking from one lens is not the only way that people heal.
Mhm.
I think that's really irresponsible.
Yeah.
Facts. So healing from a mental health aspect would require people to, one, I guess, recognize or identify something that has caused them some level of distress or
Mhm.
adverse experience or trauma, and you're trying to alleviate the pain of that healing. Now, healing in the aspects of like mental illness, I have that here because I thought that was important to hit on, because that healing is the process of also alleviating pain and symptoms, but associated with a diagnosable mental disorder
Yeah.
or addiction, because that's healing as well.
For sure.
Mhm.
And it looks different on everyone. Sometimes you can be healing from both of these things at the same time
Yeah.
Mhm.
or one or the other, but they run close together sometimes, but not all the time.
Right.
For sure. And a part of like even working through it in the mental health space is first seeing if a person is open to realizing that this is something they are trying to heal from, right? Like I don't think people readily
Yeah.
recognize.
I think that's
Recognizing
an
is one of
important
the
part.
first steps. That's a stage of healing.
Mhm.
Based off something I read, but recognizing is a stage of healing. Kind of like the stages of change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Pre-contemplation.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I was
yes.
gonna say, first you got to recognize it as something that you want to be healed from, because
Mhm.
many people in your life might say you need to heal from this or you need to go work on this. You might feel like it's not causing you no problem.
It's a buzzword on social media. Everybody say, heal, please, get away from me. Like, girl, go heal. Y'all haven't noticed in the comments? You can see people
Yes.
saying that on social media. Please go heal.
But you know what? What bothers me, I actually saw a TikTok on this the other day where this girl was like, if I'm talking about it, doesn't mean that I'm not still active in my healing. Why can't I just talk about the thing?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it depends on like if you're talking about the same thing over and over. I don't know.
I can see why people would say, so Draymond Green.
Oh my God.
Draymond Green, has some anger issues.
Yeah.
Our good brother got some anger issues. And so when he came back from his suspension, he really had some of the same behaviors.
He didn't do anything.
Okay, but I'm saying like this is a process for him. That's what healing look like. He may make us think that he ain't did nothing. He done did something. But
Has he? How
okay.
you know?
Look, I didn't say he did the thing he probably should have done, but I do know he sat down with a meditation artist. He did. But what I'm saying is he's the example that I thought about when I thought about healing, because he did take time off to maybe reflect over what he did, but then he returned and Draymond was like, he didn't have no regrets. I said, okay, he healing though, y'all.
I don't have no defense for him. I've gotten to a point where I'm like, what is wrong? What is going on? Like,
but that's how it feels sometimes. But I think I think that maybe he hasn't recognized that there is an issue with his anger.
Right.
Yeah, that's
maybe he hasn't recognized it.
Okay. So this is not to put shame on other people's ways of healing, but I think we get to decipher the difference in meeting with a therapist and then other therapeutic means of healing, right?
Yes.
Now, there's not to say that there aren't tools with meditation, but it's a bit different.
Yes. Therapy brings about stabilization.
Yeah.
The meditation can bring about maintenance. First, he got to get the stabilization.
Yeah.
I think.
And also recognizing, like, you can deep breathe and release the anger, but like, let's talk about the source of your anger.
Yeah.
And finding ways to get some impulse control.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that's really what it's about, impulse control. Because I don't think Draymond means to be that explosive on television.
But now with him saying, I don't have no regrets, then that makes me think that you're doing this on purpose. And you don't have no consequences. They let him back on the court.
Okay.
That's hard to work with for me.
but that goes back to recognizing being like one of the stages of healing. And if you have a hard time recognizing it, then people will look at what I'm saying is he probably did go sit down with somebody this time. But just because people go sit down with someone does not mean that they won't display those same behaviors that sit them there in the first place. It takes time. It takes time. I would say he probably sat down with somebody this time.
He probably did.
He probably had to.
Yeah, for sure. And which is one of those things where it's sometimes you can't, I think you've said this before, sometimes you can't remove yourself from the environment, right? Like this is literally his job.
Right.
But there would have to be some different
No, I agree.
tools to manage that for sure. I had a question, but I'm totally forgetting it. Were you gonna say something? I don't know what I thought.
Just in regards to the different types of healing, because even whenever people come to therapy, I tell them all the time, if you are not in a place to receive this type of healing, this might not be ideal for you. I have people who sometimes coaching is more beneficial because you need more specific, somebody there to walk through the day-to-day with you. Sometimes it is meditation. Sometimes it is medication because you're not going to be able to process with me and talk about things or practice things differently in your life because you need a different, I don't want to say level of care, but you need a different type of healing.
A different stream of healing. That's okay to say level of care. Level of care, it just helps us know what level people are in.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I think what I thought you was going to, like, what you said, like, this may not be the type of healing that you're ready to receive, which is, we could talk about our approaches to healing when clients come to therapy. So for me, I think it's pretty clear that I like to ask people about their day-to-day and their routine and their stress management, because I know that tapping into healing can bring about some negative emotions and unpleasant memories. And you want to make sure people are in a place to feel that. Yeah. And if they are feeling it outside of the session, that they know how to cope with it.
For sure.
Because tapping into old traumas or old wounds can be very detrimental and dangerous. Sure. So I think it's our responsibility, even though sometimes, it's met with backlash because people want to get straight to what they came to do. But I think that's when they have to say, I'm not the professional here. Let me listen to what the professional got to say. I'm not saying that clients are not the experts at their lives, but I'm saying I understand what this could do to you.
For sure. And I think that's why the process in itself is so beautiful, because especially when you're skilled in what you do, that is an educational moment. Like, if you're here to quickly address this, then you in the wrong place.
Right.
I'm not here. I've had to explain that to some clients. Like,
yes.
Can I meet with you like 2 to 3 times a week? What are we going for here? I'm here to support you. I'm open to that.
Right.
If you're trying to expedite this process, then you just realized this is something that wasn't.
This been years on top of years of things compounding and compounding. Sure. A few sessions, we got baby steps into it. Because one, you take them there too fast, then they don't come back.
Yeah. Yep.
2,
come back.
they think something is wrong with you because you're not getting there fast enough. That's why we got to set the tone in the first session and say the first couple of sessions may be data gathering.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see how you are currently caring for yourself. We may discuss like a hint of like what may have happened. We're like, okay,
Right.
we're gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna come back to it. Maybe in session 3 or 4. But let's build some rapport so you can feel more comfortable.
For sure.
But people just come to therapy and they may be the first time they've had somebody be intentional with asking what's wrong, so they're ready to just vomit it all out.
Yeah, and they're structured to it for sure. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say, yeah, they do get it all out, and that kind of is the first couple of sessions, even for me and how I address healing. Is
Okay.
you can definitely still get it all out, but now when it comes to what we're about to work on and tend to, I take the same approach as you as to seeing where they are in life and what their life is looking like on a day-to-day basis, because I need to see that you are safe. You are caring for yourself. You are taking care of your basic living.
Okay.
If you ain't doing that, anything else that we're talking about is only going to make the structure, the current state of your living worse.
And that means that we are being harmful to you if we
Yes.
take you there and you're not, and we haven't done an assessment to see if you're ready to even go there.
Right. Like, are your basic needs
Yeah, I will not do it.
addressed?
I will not do
No,
it.
not
But
at
there are
all.
some clients who have a problem with that, and that's okay. Then you find a different therapist. But as far
Which
as
is
me
totally
and how so this approach is called trauma-informed care. That's recognizing, the responsibility to make sure people are ready to tap into said traumas.
Right, for sure. And my approach is essentially the same as both of you all. On top of, like, I always tell them, like, every session is going to look different.
Every
right?
session.
Like, this session, we might be talking about who pissed you off at work. The next one could be, okay, let's process, is what happened at work, does that emulate what you've experienced before? So it all ends up coming full circle if people allow the process to happen.
And we do understand that there are barriers to engaging in therapy weekly or bi-weekly, whether it's financial or time obligations. But, it's a commitment.
It is.
To
And
your
it's
wellness.
scary.
Very scary.
It's a very vulnerable process. But if you have the right match, if you are seeing a mental health professional,
Licensed mental health professional.
thank you, you won't be alone in that process. It's a very collaborative process. And similar to what you were saying before, as far as like breaking down the sessions, you got to trust me with what you're giving me, right?
Yes.
How do y'all do that? Because you said it can be a scary start, the healing process. How do y'all feel like, what gave you and of course you're a therapist, so you already have some pre-knowledge, but what do you think has helped you and what has helped other people be, I guess, confident or more comfortable in reaching out to the therapist or starting the beginning of their healing journey? Because we know it is hard.
It is hard. I try to normalize the feeling, even in myself. Like, it's normal for me to feel a bit anxious about something that I'm trying for the first time or something that's not familiar to me. So I always try to, like, urge my clients, like, practice normalizing how you feel with yourself. That way you become good at creating the space, the emotional space that you need first and foremost. Because a lot of times we don't know how to do that. Or we continue to run and we avoid.
Right.
So I try to normalize, not only in myself, but I encourage that or help my client as they work with me.
Were you asking how do we help clients work through the fear?
I was just saying, even whenever they're starting the healing process, because I think one of you mentioned going into the therapist session for the first time or even telling your story or anything like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It can be hard. So how did you, I guess, normalize it for yourself? Or you become comfortable with the process, or how do you encourage them to?
How I normalize it with my clients is, first I say, I ask questions about their experience with therapy. What was that like?
Same.
And then I say, okay, the reason why I always tell them why I'm doing something. The reason why I'm asking that question is because I want to make sure if you were uncomfortable, we don't have any repeats of that. And also I say, it's just a conversation. I literally just tell them it's just a conversation. So, and sometimes you tell people that and people get real comfortable.
Yeah, real quick. And
they get real comfortable. And I'm like, I love it. I do love it.
And even in that approach too, it's also like, this is where we're going with this. Let me know if you're uncomfortable.
Yep,
Like that teaches them how to advocate for themselves in those moments. So if you can do that with me, I want those skills to overflow into your personal
Yes, I also say that because I tell them this is practice as well of
Yes.
teaching you how to set boundaries and communicate your needs. So I always say, if I ask you a question and you don't want to answer, you do not have to.
life.
Now, please do not go to therapy and not want to talk about anything.
Yeah, no,
That happens too.
yeah,
That means you weren't ready to take that step.
right.
And now we're just looking at each other.
Right. And then
Chilling.
sometimes can't you tell though?
Chilling.
Like when they're telling a story, sometimes I'm like, I feel like there's a missing piece here. I'm not quite sure, but
'Cause
Oh, they're always missing pieces.
I'm like,
They
They're
haven't
always
built.
missing
They haven't built the
Which is
rapport
fine.
to trust you
for
yet.
sure. No, I get
So
that.
that makes sense.
But even after a while, I'm like, okay, I've heard this story before. I don't know. I might be missing
I keep
something.
asking questions, and then eventually they're like, "Well, damn it, I guess I'll tell you."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh,
Are you?
thank
But we
you."
have you have the skill set to ask it a different way. And I've been
Yeah.
called out by my therapist. I'm not a therapist, Lord, by my clients to say, okay, you asked that question a while ago, and then you asking it differently. I said I will do that 100 times in one session because I'm gonna see if your answer gonna be the same.
Right.
I'm trying to see if you're really telling me the truth here.
right.
Mhm.
They like, so are you an investigator or a therapist? I said both.
Both. And keep in mind, people, this is not because we are being nosy. We're trying to make sure that we are helping you the best that we know how.
It is nosy though. We're all up in your business.
Yeah, but not to be like, girl.
Oh no, not like that.
We're not doing that. No,
Not
no,
like
no.
that.
Mm-mm.
Do we want to kind of go into misconceptions, or did you have some other tidbits?
Let's talk about helping clients manage triggers related to their healing, or talking about or maybe healing from relationships, because that's something that has been a common theme in my therapy room.
Okay.
They may,
I don't want to.
Huh?
I'm just playing. Go ahead.
you don't want to talk about it?
I'm just playing.
Are you triggered? Okay.
Trigger warning.
But I get a lot of people coming to therapy saying, I don't trust myself. How could I pick such a partner? I allowed this person to hurt me. I did all of these things and I still got hurt. But I know I need to heal from this, but I also don't trust myself to ever date again, to ever make a decision. So I'm like, this is definitely a healing process because we got some work to do to get you to rebuild your trust with yourself. Have you guys had that in your therapy room?
1000%.
Absolutely.
That's like one of my favorite topics of helping clients work through. Really, it's kind of encouraging them to have a growth mindset, in regards to trying to heal from a relationship, right? Like
Romantic relationship.
It's being able to acknowledge, like, I am proud of those parts of myself that was able to be caring and to be loving,
Yes.
and to be attentive. You can't lose those parts of yourself because somebody fumbled. The issue is
Uh-huh.
Say
we
that
end up
again.
blaming ourselves. No.
Yes, we do.
Not that. I meant to say, we think that we're the problem. Like, how come he didn't love me in the way that we
Yes.
we end up taking the power away from ourselves because we think that we are the ones that lost something.
Right.
And maybe
In that stage of healing, that may be where they are, right?
for sure.
But like you said though, when you were about to say blaming ourselves, yes, I have had women come in and blame themselves. Why did I let this happen? How did I not see this? And I'm like, it's okay. Like but there is a aspect of manipulation here.
Oh, fact.
You allowed your heart to do what your heart was supposed to do, which is love someone who showed you who they were, and you fell in love with that person. And by the time you're knee deep in it, they changed up on you. And you like, dang, I really love you.
Yeah.
And so then it's harder to leave. So I'm like, you can't really blame, like you said, you can't harden those pieces of yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can step into some autonomy and leave.
Yeah.
Come to therapy, do some healing. How do you help, I'm going to say women, heal from past relationships that have kind of caused them emotional wounds?
Kind of like what you just said, is really regaining that autonomy. And then I really work on small ways of you trusting yourself.
Yep.
So I am kind of investigating of like,
Okay.
how long did it take you to leave, or what were some things that you, like, when you found out or when you started kind of second guessing, what would you do then? And so they're like, well, I talked to my friend about it, or I attempted therapy, or I did these things. And I'm like, whoa, these are things that are ideal. You showed up for yourself and you showed up for a relationship that you believed in.
Right.
Those are beautiful ways to trust yourself.
For sure.
Yes.
Loving and trying is supposed to be a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
In society, we talk about these things like, what they call people simps, or weak, or what, all these different things for like
being loving and
Right.
caring. That
And
just
I'm like-
immediately made me think about Russell Wilson. He gets such a bad rep for being a
does,
caring,
and I'm
good
like,
guy.
no, you did all the things
Well,
you were
good guy
supposed
based
to.
off what I see on social media. I don't know him personally, but that I immediately thought of him because that's what everybody
And
calls
John
him.
Legend.
And John Legend, they call them
And
people.
Dwayne Wade. We can run the list.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
So I tell them like
This is
I
true.
find all the pieces in their story, and that's a part of narrative therapy is seeing. I tell my clients like the other side
Mhm.
of the road, the pieces where you showed resilience, the pieces where you showed up for yourself,
Mhm.
and when you found out it wasn't working,
Mhm.
you eventually, even if you didn't leave when you thought you should have left,
Yes.
Yeah.
you eventually left.
So you are empowering them
Yes.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
see things they cannot see
Mhm.
because they are hurt.
Right.
And that's why coming to therapy is so important when you are in that pain, because when you're in the pain, you can't really see that you really was caring about yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
Right, for sure. And I think a big part of, and that as you were talking, you made me wonder, like, is there a particular order in how we end up empowering while also like breaking down certain habits that weren't the best, right? Like,
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
so as you were
Yes.
talking, I'm like, maybe it depends on the person, but like maybe it's empowering first. That way you get to see, no, you are strong. Okay, now that we've identified these skills, can we be responsible in like, okay, there were some
Moving
habits
forward.
there.
Yeah.
That's one, but that's also one of the reasons to come to therapy. That's a form of treatment as well.
Yeah.
So that they could have that change and not repeat that pattern or those habits to put themselves back in that position.
Right. And a big part of it too is like it's okay to like take accountability, but be responsible with what you're trying to take accountability for. Right.
Mhm.
Like don't say everything was your fault.
Pick up the shit that's yours.
Right.
Work on
And
it.
yours only.
Leave the shit that's not.
No,
Right,
facts.
Exactly.
I agree with that.
I like I like the question, how do we help clients manage triggers related to their healing?
Mhm.
And I'm going to define triggers because I like definitions.
Go for it.
So triggers are rooted in past traumatic experiences, but in an effort to protect yourself from more harm, we may perceive things as a threat, but it may not be a threat,
Yeah.
or it may be a threat.
Yeah.
That's what that's how triggering work.
Mhm.
I think triggers can be dangerous, but also triggers can be useful. Because when they're useful, your intuition is telling you to make a move
Happening.
and you do it. But then when you are not really working, when you have not tapped into the healing, the triggers could make you overreact to something that's not happening.
Mhm.
And I see that a lot with my couples.
Mhm.
It is a really big thing when your triggers are your responsibility.
For sure. And I think
Ooh,
I
that's
like
a
that
big
you said that
one.
because I had a thought the other day. I don't know how this is going to translate, but like
Go
the
for it.
world doesn't stop just because you've been triggered.
Unfortunately, no.
However,
Not at all.
I always encourage people to be in spaces where that world is safe. That way you don't feel like you have to go into hiding.
That makes me, now this may be a little bit off topic, but I like what you just said. You don't have to go into hiding.
Mhm.
And I'm going to, so the Lena Hidalgo,
Mhm.
Ricky Rubio, they got something in common. They both took a step back from the spotlight because they wanted to go work on their mental health. Ricky Rubio is a basketball player, and he basically said he was done with basketball because he needed to go work on his mental health. And I'm like, the world wasn't safe for them to say they're not okay or that they need to go consistently be in therapy because the world is a big, scary place.
Mhm.
So they had to go into hiding, then come back out.
Mhm.
That is a problem to me with our society.
Yeah.
Because had we been proactive with healing or proactive with mental health care, they would not have to step down and away.
Right.
Like this is, I'm so ashamed of this.
Right. But you know
That I
what?
can't show up to do what I love, which is play basketball.
Right. And that really is unfortunate. And
Very
sometimes it gets
unfortunate.
to the point of this type of world is not for me. So how do I create a world that is safe
Facts.
and encouraging? What communities do I need to be in? That way
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if the external world is worried about my triggers and I got my crew right here.
That's beautiful because that is a sign of a person who is on a healing journey.
For sure.
When you start recognizing that you need to take those steps. Because people always say, how do I know if I'm healing? What you just said is how I know if I'm healing. We don't do the same drugs no more. Period. Because when you go to certain spaces and you're not having fun anymore with those people, we don't do the same drugs no more. I got to move around.
Mhm.
This is not it for me.
Yeah,
Because healing requires growth
it does.
sometimes.
It does.
Knowing who your people are is a blessing.
Vital to your
It's easier to navigate this big old world knowing who your people are.
And that you know that you can show up imperfect. Because
Yeah.
a part of it is 100% society and the stigma that comes with tending to your mental health.
About 90% of it
90%.
is.
And there is also another part of it of, have we normalized it for ourselves?
Yeah.
Have we made it less scary for ourselves? Have we acknowledged that
That's going to
it's
go into
okay.
the next session.
it's okay to need a little help?
You know, that's facts.
That is facts.
With as far as helping clients manage triggers, I think it's kind of like one of those things where it's so easy to like go in hiding and not be bothered with the world, right? Like that
Isolation, yeah, because you're trying to protect yourself.
for sure. And that is a way of protecting yourself. But one of the things I kind of learned, even for myself, right, is I'm in isolation. I've just not been triggered, right?
Right.
there's
So are you
only-
actually feeling better?
Exactly. So I've learned there really is no true evidence of your healing in isolation. You have to be in the
It
world.
ain't been
You
put
have
to the
You have
test.
to
No,
put
that
it to
is
the test.
facts.
And not just,
Mhm.
trigger me. No, it's not like that. But how do you begin to use the skills that you've learned in your healing process to prove there is
Mhm.
evidence of your growth?
And people ask all the time in therapy, how do I know that I'm doing better? How do I know that I am healing?
Yeah.
That's really the only way we know how.
Yep.
Is whenever they say, this situation came up, I handled it so much 2 months ago,
Yes.
3 months ago,
Yes.
it would have looked like this.
Yes.
Now it looked like this.
Yes.
You don't have that kind of evidence
Yeah.
Right.
Do you
if you're not exposed.
think
But-
people want like the fireworks type of experience?
Yes, and I was just gonna say, working as a mental health professional for a company, that's when we run into issues because they want you to show healing like it's a report card and you get a gold star for it. And I'm constantly had to say, like, that's not how this works. Unfortunately, you cannot take this out and put it on a whiteboard
Right.
or a poster board and say, hey, you got an A right here. But you can take the time to talk to people and see how they are doing things differently.
Yep.
And our responsibility as therapists is to point them to the direction that, hey, you are on this right path.
Mhm.
Because do you recognize that you're doing something differently here?
Exactly.
So, yeah, people are wanting the fireworks.
Yeah.
You can't see those fireworks, but you can feel them.
Yo, for
Mhm.
sure. And I think too, like with what we talked about a little bit earlier, as far as healing being scary, I think people are also afraid, like, I don't really want to go back to that person that I was before. I'm afraid that
Yes.
if I sit with it, I'm going to get myself into an emotional hole.
I have
don't know,
heard that
Dr. B,
before.
If I
That's
can bring
part of
myself
it.
up out.
That is a part of
I've
it.
seen another
Yeah.
part of it as well, where people are afraid to heal because they're afraid of the responsibility of continuing to be
Yeah.
that healed person.
It's a lot of
So I
work
might not
because
have access to the same kind of support that I did whenever I was not well.
Yeah.
I might not have.
I think the
same kind of
Stallion was a
attention.
good example of that. She talked about it. Megan,
Yeah.
the Stallion, calls the girl the
I
Stallion.
was like,
But Hot Girl Meg talked about that,
Mhm.
like how people start changing once you start realizing, okay, she started recognizing that she needed to have some type of healing process, and she did that. And I think I heard her just briefly speak about how, okay, when I was in this negative space, this unhealthy space, I had a lot of people around me. They don't really like this healing version of me.
Yeah.
So that can be scary.
It's
People
scary
don't
because
want to give it like
it's
they're like, these are
lonely.
the
It
only
can be
people I
lonely.
know.
Yes.
But that's when I say you have to find your people.
Yeah.
That's the process. And I'm blessed
To
that
heal and then come right off after
Yes.
healing to literally recreate your whole life and community
Yeah.
is a lot.
it is a lot. I am blessed that I know who my people are, but every day in therapy, there are people telling me that I just have not found my people. And that is a barrier to the healing.
It is.
Mm.
It is. And I try to
People
encourage, like,
Helping people find their people? Yes.
yeah.
I'll come back to that one.
Yeah. Oh,
And
tape that.
a big
Mhm.
part of healing is also inner child work, which is my favorite thing to do. We need another session about inner child
We do. I'm taking notes. Don't
because
forget
I love helping clients reconnect with their inner child
that. Yeah.
as a part of the healing process. It is such a beautiful thing.
It really is.
Oh my
Even
God.
Clients end up crying together. I'm like, what can you give that little girl that couldn't have the things before? What can the adult give that
Yes.
little girl? Ugh.
Yes.
We end up crying together.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
Okay, we're gonna so misconceptions of healing. You guys kind of hit on it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It ebbs and flows. It's up and down. And that, Toni Morrison had said something about healing because I found myself as a frustrated Black woman in America. And I'm like, racism ain't changing.
Nope.
Sexism ain't changing. Misogyny, all of this stuff is here and it is embedded in the DNA of this country. And she basically said, you can't heal in whole. Like, you got to zoom in. If you zoom out, you will be like,
You lose your mind.
you'll lose your mind. You got to zoom in and focus on what you can control
Yep.
and heal. Kind of like we just talked about, knowing who your people are. That means that I may be somewhere where I'm like, okay, these aren't my people, but I'm still here. I'm not going to isolate. Now I can use discernment so that I don't find myself triggered
Yeah.
in this space. But I know as I've been healing that this is not the place that I should just like be completely vulnerable. It's not safe.
Right, for sure.
So I think Tony said something like that.
No, you're right. That's facts. Yeah, you just have to take your time and work through it and process it. It's not always fun. It's not always shits and giggles, but you get to be your whole self once you begin to let go of what no longer serves you.
I love that. And on that note, go love yourself.
Go love yourself.
Go love yourself.